Welcome back again. That was another fantastic presentation. We've got one more coming now. Actually, Robert, I mean, you've put together such a good agenda. It is like this, that I see the topics coming up and I'm genuinely fascinated by each of them. And there's so much diversity of the quality here. So thank you again so much. And this one especially, I think many of us are passionate about sustainability and how we integrate that into our marketing, communications and branding efforts. So very happy to be introducing Fatima here. Fatima is Director of Group Brand Portfolio and Media Strategy at Air France-KLM. After working at KLM Royal Dutch Airlines on the dual brand strategy for Air France and KLM, as well as KLM's repositioning translation into a renewed strategy for international communications and design identity, Fatima was responsible for the growth of the brand of SkyTeam, which I'm a member of, by the way, really great. The Global Airline Alliance, partnering 19 members, key markets around the world. Great reward scheme, by the way. And since 2015, she joined Air France-KLM Group to set up its new function as the Global Brand Director. So I hand over to you, and I'll see you at the end for the Q&A. Good luck.
Thank you so much. It's really great being here today, and I'm so inspired by all the stories. And what I'm also really happy about is that compared to some of the previous sessions, I do see that more of the corporate social responsibility is coming through all of these stories in some way, one or the other. I will dive, though, first of all, into a quiz. And Robert, I will be needing a little bit of your help here, because the question I have for you all, and I want you to respond in the chat box, is when it comes to sustainability, hot topic nowadays, carbon emissions, aviation industry is very much in the highlights. So according to you, what is the contribution of the aviation industry to carbon emissions on a global scale? 2%, 10%, 15, 25? Just let me know your guesses. And Robert, I would like to hear from you what the general responses are.
Okay, so far we got mostly 10s. We got 10, 15, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 20, 15, 15.
10 is winning. I think 15 is coming second.
Yes.
Oh, it's very close now.
Okay.
Yeah, 15 is second. There's a 2.
So 10 to 15. Very
10,
good. Very
10
good.
to 15. So 12 point something, I'd say.
Exactly.
I am not surprised that this is your answer, given the amount of attention we get in the media. So the real answer is 2%, 2.5% around the globe. If I give you a little bit of background on these figures, 2.5, and I will speak about it more in detail. Aviation industry, 5% more or less internet. So when you're binging that next Netflix series, think about 5%. The fashion industry, 5%. The cement that we use to build our homes, around 5%. 10% is the entire road transport category. So us driving our vehicles, the trucks driving our food, that's about 10%. 10% is also the fuel and power we need to heat our residential buildings, to provide us electricity, things like that. 15% is the entire transportation category as a whole, so everything on the ground, on the water, in the air. And 25% finally is the entire electricity and heating sector. So that is 25% altogether. So coming back to the 2.5%, you would say, oh, actually, it's not a problem at all. No, it is. Of course, the aviation industry takes its responsibility extremely, extremely serious. And the interesting thing is that for the past 40 years, planes have really become much more efficient, like around 60% more efficient. If you have the original DC-8, for those who can remember, the full fuel usage would be around 8.5 liters per 100 passenger kilometers. Today, the Boeing 777, as we call it, uses up about 3 liters per 100 passenger kilometers. So for those of you driving a car, you can more or less have an idea of how that relates to you and the consumption of your car. So in those 40 years, something else happened, and that was the rise of the middle class in Asia and South America, in Africa. And all of that made that the industry grew like crazy, and it is expected to continue to grow. So despite this efficiency that was created, it doesn't mean that we're there. because travel will continue to grow. So we do need a next solution. And we will, of course, continue to see aircraft becoming a little bit better. But that big jump that was made in those last 40 years, you cannot expect it anymore. So one of the next stages is biofuels. But here is something that this industry cannot do all by itself. If you want to move towards hydrogen fuels, synthetic kerosene, things like that, you really need the help of bigger partnerships where government plays a role, the oil industries play a role. So you need a really wider effort, the same way that at one time we had solar panels that was very small, and now it has become a very big industry. The one thing that I would like to say is that scapegoating the airline industry is not going to help us. It's not going to be a real solution for climate change. We all, as all industries, as we sit here together, every single one of us will have to make a contribution and will have to take action. And my presentation today aims to give you some ideas and some learnings of how we went about that process. And I'm hoping that it can inspire you a little bit as well. Before we go into our story, though, I would like to share something that was in the news in the Netherlands quite recently. And it's called the Dutch Denim Deal. It's an initiative of about 30 parties that are involved in making jeans. G-Star, Diesel are quite big brands in the Netherlands. And this sentence that you're seeing here is actually from their own press communication, where they were saying, like I was saying, the total emissions of the textile industry worldwide are more than everything from all aviation and maritime transport combined. And when I was reading the information, I saw immediately it is not just a carbon issue, they also have a water issue. Did you know that for one pair of jeans, you need 7,500 liters of water for one pair of jeans? One t-shirt, 2,500 liters go into one t-shirt. And water is another scarcity and expected global urgency in the next 10 to 15 years, as they expect demand will be like 40% higher than supply in those next 10 years. So what did these 30 parties do? They committed themselves for the next 3 years that they will make 3 million denim garments using at least 20% of recycled textile. And it's very interesting because in order to do that, they need to change their production, they need to get the jeans back from you, so they need a completely different infrastructure. And the learning that I found very similar to the path that we were on is that it's very hard when you want to change the big system. You can hardly do that alone. So you need to partner. You need to partner with others in your industry, and you need to partner with others outside of your industry. And the other big learning is that you don't necessarily need to wait until you are finished before you can communicate. It's very much okay, nowadays especially, to communicate a commitment, to say we are on this journey, we are exploring this journey, and we are willing to find out how it is going to bring us to a better result. So how did we start this process in our company? Actually, it started about 16 to 20 years ago already. I'm very proud that both Air France and KLM have always been pioneers in the aviation industry, and they were one of the first who started looking into sustainability and this wider program. The picture I'm showing you here is outside of the head office of Air France at the Charles de Gaulle Airport, where I work around 3 days a week, not now due to Corona. And you can see here a number of initiatives that are part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I hope that these are familiar to you. If not, I would highly recommend that you follow one of the trainings. There's one on Coursera, which is really great. It's given by the Rotterdam School of Management, which is a very fun way of introducing you to this program. So where we started those 16 years ago is, of course, top-down. You need to show from the top down that this is serious. It's important that the top is committed. But of course, the top at that moment did not quite know how do we handle a topic like this, which is not really our core business. So the partnership they looked for was with the World Life Fund, and it was the World Life Fund that brought us in touch with these United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. So this became the structure of the program. And they then started putting this into a compelling vision for the future. And they started putting specific long-term goals. It became part of roadshows that were being given all over the company, but also very important. It's not just about telling the story everywhere. It was also integrated in things like performance marketing. So at the top, people were getting targets on certain sustainability projects. Then there is no success of a program like this if you don't have a strong engagement program. And we've seen throughout the day a couple of really nice examples already. What we did, we introduced what we call innovation leaders, people who are very experienced in what they do, but are very passionate about change and are informal leaders with a very big network in the company. Recently, I was at another congress and I heard a French company who called their program Horizon, but I especially like the name they gave to their innovation leaders. They called them Les Audaces, the Braves. And I thought that was a really nice way of positioning the people who are leading programs like these throughout the company. And finally, the last step is that anytime throughout the year, it is so important that you not only report achievements, but that you also celebrate achievements. So obviously, we have videos on a regular basis on our corporate screens. We have posters that are being made from time to time to remind us of things that are happening. But we also traditionally had our yearly innovation awards, and we created a new category which was dedicated to our sustainability efforts. Partnerships, it's something I've been talking about throughout my presentation, and I would say it's a very important success factor for everything that you do. I'm showing you here a picture of the Flying V. I hope that some of you have heard about it. And it came about by one of the hackathons that we did. So we organized on a very, very regular basis hackathons with universities, with startup companies, because people bring completely refreshing ideas from the outside in. And this was the result of a cooperation with the TU Delft, one of the universities that brings forth the biggest engineers in our country. And they revolutionized the aircraft model. It does not look like any aircraft you know today. And if this really comes to exist, it will again make the aircraft about 25% more efficient than the aircraft we know today. A small model has flown already just a few months ago. It was a model of about, I think, 3 to 5 meters big. So it does fly. It is able to fly. So now, of course, it's interesting to see how quickly can such a thing be brought to existence. You need aircraft manufacturers. I believe there is interest from Airbus already. And this is something extremely interesting, but of course, it has a very big timeline of at least 20, if not more years before this happens. The same thing, by the way, electricity for aircraft, very hard. It's not that easy to make these type of things go as quickly as you would think. Plus, electricity will always have only small ranges. You will not be able to cross the transatlantic with an electric plane. You really need hydrogen for that. So working with partners, and to make a small step outside of our own industry, there are also examples, for instance, in Chile, where salmon farmers were looking for ways to expand their business. And for that, they needed to cross to the ocean, but they were very afraid of the impact that salmon farming would have on the ocean coast. And you have to know that aquatic culture is extremely important for the future food guarantee all around the world. So here too, they partnered with the World Life Fund and Rabobank, the investment bank, and they really worked, the three of them, in making sure that the industry would remain successful, would expand, but would not harm the environment. So partnerships, very important success factor. The other one, I would say, is stories are everywhere, initiatives are everywhere, so the opportunity to energize your staff is everywhere. And the picture you're looking at now is from our components department, part of our maintenance department. And they are working on a blade or a vane. One goes left, the other goes right. They're part of our motors. And on a regular basis, they need to be cleaned, maintained, checked. Are there no holes? What if it had a bird strike or something like that? And in that process, there are little plastic items that are needed, for instance, to cover a certain area so that they can spray paint it. And those are traditionally made of plastic and would be imported from other companies around the world. So at some point, our colleague said, today we have 3D printers. Why don't we get a 3D printer instead of having to get those plastic things from all over the world? Why don't we print it ourselves in our own workshop? But then we need plastic filaments. Why don't we produce the plastic filaments ourselves? And the next train of thought was, why don't we get the plastic bottles that we use on board of our flights, and we get those, we use that to make our own filaments, and then we print the accessories that we need. Of course, then you need our crew to be recycling and be making sure that when they pick up the garbage, that they put the plastic bottles separate from the rest of the garbage, and then they need our catering department to bring it to our maintenance workshop. This is what they did, and this is what is happening today. And examples like these are throughout our company, and I'm sure they are throughout your company as well. We have initiatives of water conservation. Our planes need to be washed regularly. Water is not just conserved, it is purified and reused. If you have people on the road driving cars, how do you tackle that? We have our pilots who trained for different landing procedures, who are now taxiing on one motor, all to reduce the use of fuel. We recently switched on European flights to vegetarian sandwiches only, so that we don't need to use as much meat, which, as you know, has a big carbon footprint. Think of your restaurants. Do you have a Meatless Monday already? We have lots of social programs in every single country where our company is active, and we fly directly to around 180 destinations all around the world. We fly to 1,000 thanks to all our other partners. But we have social programs in all of the countries that we work in. Things like contracting. Our purchasing department, every time they finalize a contract, they make sure that the United Nations Global Compact is included as part of the contract. That means that our suppliers need to guarantee that they are not abusing, they're not using slavery, they're not using child labor, that people are working for them under good circumstances, with good salaries. So these are ways to perpetuate your own sustainable development goals with all the suppliers that you are working with. And of course, there are many other things you can think of. What is your pension money doing? I was very much triggered by a recent ad on the Dutch television by an insurance company called ASR that was asking that question. What is your pension money doing? Is it being invested in weapons and ammunition? Or is it being invested in wind farms and solar or hydrogen? So the most important thing is that all these initiatives bring you stories that you can use in your communication. And they are especially important for the younger generation, because the younger generation can see through all of the advertising. Advertising for them is greenwashing. They're not interested. They want to know what you are doing. They want evidence, they want proof. And so they really want to know and are interested in knowing what it is that you are doing for the planet. So this brings me to my communication. Let's see how I'm doing for time. When we started our communications program quite a while ago, we introduced a label, both on the Air France side and on the KLM side, a label under the name Takes Care. So we have a label called Air France Takes Care and a label called KLM Takes Care. Everything that we present, whether it's in our onboard magazines, in digital magazines, in newsletters, on the back of the cup, on wherever we are presenting a sandwich, we would traditionally put that label and tell you a little bit about that story. What is very important, though, is that very early on, we started measuring what was the appetite for customers to pay more for a sustainable product. Well, unfortunately, The answer is not that much. So yes, there are people who want to make a different choice in order to save the planet, but that's not the majority. Our audience is still attracted by our main customer proposition. And it's something that I've always highlighted to everyone. First and foremost, there must be a reason why people choose you. Your brand needs to be unique. It needs to be different. It needs to be meaningful. So people need to have a reason to buy you. And on top of that comes the sustainability pillar. So here you can see a number of examples from Air France that I think you all will agree is an iconic brand, very prestigious, sophisticated, very much an expert, but this French touch always runs through everything that Air France does. So when they were looking for an alternative for plastic cutlery, they actually went for bamboo cutlery. And so that is what you're seeing here. But the design continues to be still very, very elegant, and the way it is presented and all the packaging around it and the photography that was made, you can still see it is quintessentially Air France. Now, if I look at the KLM brands, you can see here again the KLM Takes Care label that was used. KLM is a brand that cares. It's a caring brand, as if it's a good friend of yours. It cares about you, the customer. It cares about the community. It cares about us, the employees, but it also cares about the planet. And this photo is part of the compensation program that we have. Whenever you fly, you can compensate the CO2 you have emitted. The program name is CO2 Zero. And KLM partners with a project in Panama where they are doing reforestation programs. And this is an actual photo of the plantation where they are growing the seedlings for the trees that they are going to put out for reforestation. And this is typically KLM. It's always there, bringing you close to the people that matter and bringing you close to the reason of flying, to make sure that journeys are inspirational. And I would like to stay with the KLM examples as I finalize my presentation, because last year KLM introduced a very different campaign, and it was called Fly Responsibly. And it reminds me a little bit of the Dutch Denim deal that I presented at the beginning. Fly Responsibly is not about this is our program, this is what we do. It is a commitment again. It's a commitment on our side that we are doing what we can as an aviation, but it's also an invitation to the whole world, to companies, big corporates, who will enter our biofuel program so that we can increase the scale of the biofuel. It is inviting customers to think, and believe it or not, this picture that you are looking at is a still from the commercial that was made. And one of the invitations was you as a customer, what is the reason you are flying? Are you flying to see your loved ones? Are you flying because you are starting a new college education? Are you going out to meet new cultures, learn about new cultures? Are you doing business, bringing economic prosperity? But are there maybe moments where flying is not really necessary? So the campaign said, well, why don't you do some video calling from time to time? Little did we know that today's events would be all done by video conferencing. So we had a little bit of foresight, I guess. Another discussion in the video was, why don't we take the train a little bit more often? And again, with Corona, especially in Europe, you can see how active that conversation has become, especially on the short range. Why don't we invest in better rail connections? And why don't we connect the air system to the rail system and make it easier for those two modalities to work together? So what was the outcome of this campaign? It was a huge success. We didn't even have it in a lot of media. I had the KLM team that worked on this. They put it very in different countries, but the response was huge. It was picked up especially by influencers and journalists. And this for us was extremely important because of the quiz I started with at the beginning of my presentation, we do want more people to know the real facts and figures. We want to know that this industry is very much taking its responsibility seriously. So the fact that influencers started talking about this was a big, big gain. We also ran the campaign in the Nordics, and we did with our marketing mix modeling, we checked how the campaign was perceived. And actually, it did increase our return on investment. But when we check our brand metrics, something very funny is happening. On our brand metrics, it is very hard to make it move towards more sustainable development. And what we see is that the stronger the brand is, the stronger the perception of the public is that probably it has taken care of sustainability as well. So while influencers were very much influenced by this campaign, and while the campaign brought an immediate effect on our return on investment, for the brand to be seen as a sustainable brand when you are in the aviation industry at least, it is not that easy. So investing in having a strong brand definitely also helps in having a strong sustainable reputation. So to conclude, if I would have to give the takeouts of my presentation, I would like to remind again how every moment can be a story. And you can use that in your communications program. Every moment can also be a way to energize your internal staff. And the success of a program like this is not possible without a strong internal engagement program from the top to the people on the front line and on the work floor. Do work with partners, whether they're from your own industry or from outside of the industry. Bring fresh thoughts, fresh ideas to your company. Show your commitment. Even if you're not ready, don't be afraid of going out and be authentic. Show that you don't know all the answers yet. You are able to get there. And of course, I would invite you, once the corona is over, that you do fly responsibly. And I hope, of course, you will fly responsibly with Air France and KLM, as we really are out on this journey all together with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fatima. Wonderful presentation. There's some really nice comments in the chat there. I love your presentation stories. Very inspiring from Anne. And actually appreciation that you started the presentation with some audience interaction as well. Thank you. I got it wrong, I have to admit. I thought it was higher, but that's why you chose the numbers you did, right? So,
exactly.
Really, really brilliant work by yourself and the team there. Inspiring. And very, very important. Now, I'm waiting to see if any questions do pop up, because we do have time. It appears... Okay, here we go. Yeah, a question from Anne. Yeah, it's very interesting to hear that you have a campaign promoting the use of trains and planes. Is it announcing a long-term business change? Like, will you have a KLM trains brand?
That's a very good question. I can tell you there was actually a lot of debate about this in our company, especially because in France, there's a huge domestic network, and planes are competing with trains. It's something we honestly have to think about. And the most important is that we think, how do we make those two systems work together as good as possible? And trains are not always the better solution. Not just because when you want to bring people to the other side of the pond, the train will not get you there, but trains also need infrastructure on the ground. So it also depends a little bit whether in the end the one or the other is better. There are not going to be KLM trains or Air France trains, but what you do already have in a very small type of cooperation is what we call air rail. And we do expect that this will become bigger, and that more effort will go in making it seamless to do a transfer between a plane and a rail. Today, for instance, when you want to book it on our website, it's not possible. In the future, you could prepare to see train connections as you arrive with an air. So seeing it already on the website, making sure that there's a service for your baggage, that if you arrive late and you miss your train or you miss your plane, that there is somebody taking care of that, rebooking you. So definitely expect more services in this area in the future.
Wonderful. Yeah, and more positive comments, but no question there. So, do we just let them go early, Robert? Unless you've got a question yourself. I really enjoyed the presentation, but nothing from me.
Any predictions about, I don't know if you addressed this, but like future flights requiring vaccination certificates?
It's a good one.
Or will there be testing on flights when people board?
Yeah, so there is one initiative taking place across the industry, which they're thinking of, is called vaccination passports. The problem, of course, is a vaccination. How long will it work, and how safe is it? So if you have a passport, what is the security of that passport, and can you really rely on it? Because a real passport, as you know, has like 20 different factors of protection, and they're quite expensive. So if you would have a vaccination passport, does it mean that you would be traveling? And flying still needs to be accessible to a lot of people. So it is something that is being considered, but it's not going to be easy. Probably the thing that will happen more and more is that you'll have quick tests at the airport. Yeah. So today, this week, for instance, a corridor was opened between Atlanta and Amsterdam Schiphol, where all the customers going on board went through a quick test, or they have a recent PCR test. Otherwise, they're not on the flight. And that means that they can have a very speedily flight. And I guess that more of this will start happening. So I would say it's a combination. It's a combination of initiatives that need to take place so that trust is restored.
Wow.
Good. And I think actually you touched on this. It was mentioned earlier in the show. Even when travel is open up, people's attitudes have changed somewhat. And I think one of the most important things is that it's not just about COVID-19. We were becoming more aware of sustainability impact issues beforehand. And I think the airline industry has taken this opportunity to rethink, especially in the marketing and comms. You've done a great job here to help, work with your customers as they will approach travel in a different way going forward. And that sustainability mindset will be there, I hope. Wonderful session. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And thanks for calling it a show. That means I did a good job. Yay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. Yeah, superstar. Congratulations.
Thank you for your great comments. If later on you have any other questions, feel free. I will be here for the full 2 days. So I'm looking forward to anyone who wants to have a one-on-one chat. Feel free to connect.
And that's a super segue into the next session. So I hope everybody's going to go back into the lounge again and enjoy the nice table space where we get to chat with each other in more intimate scenarios and continue this conversation or any others that you want to bring up. And like I'm going to do, also take the chance to get some refreshments. So see you in there. And then we're back at 4:30 CET, I believe, Robert, for the final session of the day. So don't go away. Don't miss that one, which is Jenny and a really interesting story about brand narrative, which I'm looking forward to, brand storytelling. See you there.
See you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.